Hello. Hello.
Hi guys. Hello.
Hello.
Hi guys. How are you? I just spoke to
Good evening,
Deepak.
sir.
Hi Shrikant. How are you?
I'm fine.
Okay. So what about others?
Good.
Aditya, Parul.
I'm good.
Okay, good. That's good to know. How's Anmol? Manmeet?
Fine, sir. Fine.
Okay, great. I mean, it's a kind of an exercise where I'm understanding whether I'm audible to you guys or not. Last time there was some issue, so it got resolved. So I think we have about how many? 7 people. I think there's no point waiting for others. They will join. I came to know that there was some session going on by there was some discussion going on with Anshul. So it was a combined session or how it was? Anyone can.
Actually, it was for those who are not attending, but still they were not there to attend that session also. So it
Okay,
was
okay.
just about.
So whosoever was there on that session are already there. We should not wait for anyone. That's what actually I wanted to check. Okay, so let's do one thing. I'll just share my screen. Now, I hope my screen is visible to all of you, right? Okay, guys. So, so in today's session, we are going to talk about business writing. So, when we will talk about business writing, we'll talk about the stages or steps which are involved in basically business writing. So my question to the house: whenever you hear business writing, what comes to your mind? It's a question to the house. So what happened, guys? Anyone can answer. Well, the moment you hear about business writing, what comes to your mind? So anyone, Shrikant, Rohit, Parul, Akansha. So guys, what happened? Am I audible or not? Okay. So so any communication which we do um, related to business, which should actually fall under the category of business writing. Largely, the majority of the business writing is the email communication, which we um, come across. Telephonic conversation is also part of business communication, but it's not something which is part of the written communication. So whenever we are talking about the written content, so then there are two types of written communication or business writing happens. One is basically your what do you call the email communication or email writing. So that is one type. Another type of business writing comes when we are actually functioning as a financial analyst and writing different types of reports. Which are required. We talked about equity research report. We are going to talk about step brainstorming technique to you can say that how business writing can be structured using brainstorming, mind mapping, or the other tools which the techniques which are there in terms of outlining the storyboarding or whatever should be the layout or design, and the writing skills basically, which could be part of the business writing. Uh, Steps are fine, when we will be knowingly or unknowingly actually following these steps, but it's just when we know that what are our actual steps followed in business writing, then it gives you a better idea to actually basically structure or articulate your thought process, which helps you to write in the desired manner. So before talking about all these things, what I would like to stress on, which is my own presentation of business writing. So the moment we start talking about business writing, there are a couple of questions which should be asked, or if we are clear on those questions, then actually it is easy for us to actually do justice to our writing, and because we are not writing for ourselves, it's for the people who are the end user of our written piece. So then there should be things which need to be kept in mind while writing something which is of use to somebody in a different, in a very unique way. So the first thing which we should always keep in mind while when you are going to be writing, be it any type of writing, so who will read what I write? So basically what we are saying, that we should know our audience, because audience is very, very important aspect to writing. It's like if you will write something which is of interest, keeping the audience in mind, then what will happen, they will actually able to keep attached to the, or they will get engaged to what you are writing. And why should they read what I write is something you should know beforehand, which talks about a purpose. So the first thing with what is most important is to know your audience. The moment you know your audience, it will help you in knowing your audience, how knowledgeable they are, what is the level of detail you should share with them, whether they have basic knowledge or not, or do you have to actually start from the basics to communicate or to basically meet the objective of what they are looking. So audience is very important when you are going to write something to something something, then the first thing which you keep in mind is for whom you are writing and who will read what you are writing. And then another thing which become important is why let's say they want to understand a company from buying perspective. So somebody some of the client is interested in knowing how this company could be, and so that is what the purpose. If we know the purpose, then we will actually try to do that. Is basically the solution. If you know your audience first and then you know the purpose for which you are writing, then obviously you will find out these solutions, or those solutions are more helpful, or you will be able to suggest appropriately or write appropriately from the end user point of view. How can I best communicate is something which depends on the mode of communication. Sometimes you might be, mostly we will be talking about the written stuff. Is there anyone who would like to add something to it? based on their own experience? Guys, anything which comes to your mind with based on what we discussed? I'm sure you might have been your experience when writing a lot of stuff in the form of email or in any other form of communication, but these things you guys are following, Shrikant, anyone can answer so that it becomes an interactive session. Okay, so that is
precise.
Should be precise. Okay,
so we can develop an outline.
okay. So when you say
Urgency of communication.
Sorry,
Urgency of communication will decide the method of communication.
Yeah, that is also true. So when you say that it should be urgently replied, or should be concise, or should I mean, as Manmeet said, should be simple to understand. So that is what we are actually answering when we know our audience, then we know that how best we should write. It should, if it is simple, obviously simple is the best thing to do. Concise means if we can write to the point, in an active voice, where we are very assertive in terms of communicating, then definitely that will be more bring more clarity to what we have written. And then urgency is something which we should look at how we should communicate or complete the process. If it is too urgent, then I think we should not either wait for a written mode. We can directly communicate over the phone, or you can say that urgency will be based on if somebody sends you something, then acknowledging that mail will also be part of that. That is the first interaction of written communication with somebody. So those are the things which actually are there. But what I want to emphasize here is all those factors actually getting fitting into who, why, what, and how. So these are actually the four broad buckets. If you, before writing, just put answer against these four things, then probably you will have more clarity in terms of what you are going to write, how you are going to write, and basically what you are going to write. So now moving on to the next thing. Next page is why are you communicating? That is what it is important. When now I'm just restricting the discussion to internal or external communication, which is mostly email communication or written communication, which is happening quite frequently among our colleagues, subordinates, or you can say that our seniors. So if the second point which is very important in our communication is we should know the purpose of communication, which will be the second key point. Knowing the purpose will also provide clarity. So that is what it is very important, and because it is the second stage, it a stage, but I should say that if you are actually writing something, then this is the second important point which you should consider. And the moment we know that why are you communicating internally, when we are communicating internally or externally as well, the communication would be basically, it is going to be an argument. Okay, so these are the broad categories in which you are actually trying to communicate. So that is what it is very important in terms of knowing why you are actually communicating. So if you know the purpose of your communication, if it is an argument doesn't mean that you are contradicting to some of the points, points put in by somebody else. It is like a discussion also. So if somebody is there is a communication happening, and in that communication somebody has given his view, then if you are giving either supporting argument or basically a counter argument, then that is what it is important. If you know that you are actually consciously entering into a discussion, then the communication would have been, the written part would be with a different style. So the moment now, you can go back and recall. If you're part of a corporate world, then try looking at the communication from an argument point of view. Now, if you can recall, or if you can go back to recall something, I would actually want to understand if somebody has this type of exposure where there was a discussion going on. So how communication happens when you are actually putting your point across? So what all the things which you would be keeping in mind when you know that the purpose is a discussion? So that is what, does anyone have this type of exposure where he can give his views how business writing should be, how business writing going to be when it is a kind of a discussion or an argument? Anyone? Okay, so you just, if you have an exposure to the corporate communication, go back and see how discussions are happening, how these are, the points are put in a subtle and a very I should say that in a very defensive, not defensive, basically in a neutral way, where you are trying to put your point as well, and not putting whole weight to your argument. Sometimes you actually become a bit diplomatic in saying that yes, I agree with you. You start with that, yes, I agree with you, but my point is this one. Or sometimes you say that you would start with a negative connotation that no, I don't agree with you, but because of based on my understanding, this could be something which should be like this or should be followed. Or if you are saying that this is I don't fully agree with you, that is my concern, these are my concern. So all those things actually decides or takes a shape when you know that it is a discussion or an argument. When you are going to announce, it's like, you know that the type of communication is an announcement. It's an open-ended announcement, so it is going to reach to the masses. So then there you will use a different set of words, language, which will be definitely different from what you are going to use when you are actually entering into a discussion. then it could be something pervasive languages also, if you want to persuade something, or if you are want to inquire something, then the language become very, tone is very mild. You actually are in a mode of a request or inquire type of a mail. Inquiry is something when you are seeking some information. Request is something when you are asking somebody to do something. So that is what it is important to know the purpose. And the moment you know the purpose, why you are going to do that, or why you are doing that communication, then the style which you adopt is basically is the response, or is actually mostly driven by the purpose of that. So it could be follow up, it could be a proposal, or it could be an explanation. So the moment you would like to explain something, then definitely there is a need to explain. And when you explain, you follow a proper step-by-step procedure of explaining things from either basics, or maybe knowing the audience. You can start from which suits or helps your purpose. So these all are the broad categories under which an email is written internally. So when you know why you are, what is the purpose, then it is easy for you to adopt a style which is best suited in terms of business writing. That is what it is important. And the follow-up thing is, if you know the purpose, then information to be communicated, questions to be answered. These are the two things. And then it comes to the vocab or the verbs to consider. So that is what it is like. It's a part of the process, where for the moment you are about to write something, then stage one is to know your audience. The moment you know your audience, and then you should know what is the purpose or what it is going to achieve. So the moment you know that why you are communicating, that is what it comes. And then you can bucket or categorize any written piece can be bucketed under all these points. And the moment you know that you are going to announce a promotion. Okay, so when you are going to announce a promotion, then HR, then they know that how much what information they are going to communicate, and question to be answered. So that may not be relevant, but the information to be communicated. If you are inquiring something, then there could be some additional information you might have to explain for what purpose you are inquiring such information. Or if you are actually following up on, then what you are going to communicate. So the style which you are going to adopt, or the pattern which you are going to use, is dependent on what it is actually in terms of the category. So that is what the most important thing. Now I'll just give you a brief idea, a brief example. Can I put this to the house, that if you are there are three type of people in an organization to whom you actually converse or involve into the email communication, so, or a written communication. So can you just give me an idea, or what is your thought on if you are going to actually write an email to your senior? So what all things you would be keeping in mind when you are going to write something to the senior people, or to your reporting managers? Anyone? Guys, what happened? आज कोई कुछ बोलने के मूड में नहीं है या क्या बात है भाई लोगों? दीपक,
Yes.
I mean, I want your views on if you are going to write something to your manager, or then what all things you would be keeping in mind when you write something to your senior.
If you're asking me, then it all depends on what the topic it is. I'm seeking the information, I'm giving the information, or
Okay, let's assume that you are giving the information.
so you are asking the content of communication or what?
No, I mean, what I'm saying is, if you are, in an organization, there are three types of people, or three buckets of people with whom you interact. One is your seniors, one is your colleagues, which are on the similar band, and another one are the ones who are working in your teams. So these are the three type of people. Whenever you have to communicate how role changes or how communication changes when you are talking to your senior, when you are talking to your colleague, or whenever you are actually talking to your juniors. So that is what, if you have to communicate anything, be it seeking an information or giving an information. So do you think there is a change in written style when you are going to talk to the three different type of categories?
Yes.
So what could be that?
Again, I'm not getting your question. That means you are saying that how we are addressing, or what are the contents, or means.
No, it's not about content. I'm saying you are when you are working in an organization. So is it clear that there are three type of people, three categories of people in an organization? The ones who are at your level, the ones who are working in your team, and the ones who are managing you, right? This is clear?
Yeah.
So now what I'm asking you, when you are communicating to these three categories of people, is there, you will be using one measurement stick which fits all, or you would be adopting a different style of communication to these three type of people? That is what is important.
Actually, they should be you cannot the way you are communicating to your subordinates, you cannot communicate in the same manner to your superiors. So we have to be very cautious when you are addressing the topic, and what it should be precise, because if you are addressing it to your superiors or management, then you have to be very, very precise. The thing should be clear and should address the purpose of your communication.
Okay.
In all three areas, but when you are interacting with or males in the formal communication, then if you are interacting with the superiors, then you should be very precise in your communication to the content, as well as what actually you want to tell in a brief manner.
Okay.
Because
so
they are not going to read the essays and all that.
Yes, definitely. So that is what. So the style or the writing pattern or the tone of your message will be totally different the moment you know your audience. If it is your subordinate, then your tone will be totally different. When you are talking to your seniors, then your tone will be totally different. The tone actually sets the style of your written style, or basically the communication. So now I'll just give you a small example. Here, when we are actually, what you how would you write to? Let's take an example. You are talking to or communicating to your superiors. Then the language will be like, here are my next steps. Means you are actually, they are the authoritarians who are seeking information from you, and in that situation you would be actually telling them what you are going to do. That is my action, how my actions are going to be. If this communication is happening to your colleagues, then it becomes, it's not that what you are going to do, it's basically becomes a team effort. Here are our next steps, so that somebody won't feel that that this guy is basically trying to take a lead, because that's what all about competition in the organization. That is what it is important. When you write to your management or your seniors, you would be telling them what you are going to do. In there is no competition at all. But when you are going to write something in terms of something, the audience or the addressable people are your colleagues, then your tone will be, here are our next steps. Now if you are, doing the same exercise, but your audience or your addressable people are your team members or your subordinates, then how things will change from being more collaborative or being from more informative. You are actually becoming a guy who is giving direction. So what are your next steps? Or basically you are actually telling or setting up the process that you have to do this. That is what my point here is. One major aspect of any is your basically the audience or the addressable people. Here are the three categories which we actually see when you are talking to your superiors. You are not somebody who is going to give the direction to them. You are actually going to inform them. When you are talking to your colleagues, then also you are not giving any direction. You are actually saying that this is something which we all have to do. You will also be part of that group, so that somebody won't take it in a way that competition should not creep in. So that is where the language is very important, because the tone is very much dependent on when you know your audience, and after that audience you will know the purpose. So purpose and audience are the two combined factors which are very, very important from a style which is adopted in a kind of a written communication. So that is what it becomes an important. And when you are actually talking to the team members, then obviously based on your experience, you would be looking at the overall picture. So you would be in a guiding mode. I'm not saying that you are an authoritarian who is going to be directing people in a very aggressive manner, but the point here is, the moment the audience changes, your style of communication also changes. So you can very well go back and check in your communication to these three categories, the type of style which you have adopted to three different type of categories is already there. It is just that we should actually know explicitly that based on the audience, what tone and style we are going to follow for that matter. Clear? Am I clear in this? Or if somebody has any suggestion or doubt, we'll happy to discuss that. Anyone, if somebody wants to add something to it based on the experience, that will be actually helping others as well, knowing individuals' experience. But this is what actually it is. What should be kept in mind is your audience and the purpose. If you have these two things in place, then 90% of the cases, the communication will be in line with what it has to be. So, so that is what it is. Very, very important. Now I'll move back to the process of successful writing, and then probably I'll take the instances. So the first, actually it's basically from this it's a style which you adopt with which comes with, which is not naturally some people are having that natural talent of interpersonal skills. But it is something which can be adopted by practice. It's not an eureka type of moment. Definitely, so practice should be, you should know the rules and the best practices to become a good writer, because it's all about the reader's world. Whatever you are going to write, that has to be from the can follow writing is a result. Now, how to structure information, both text and design, to achieve an intended purpose for clearly defined audience. So that is what it is very, very important in terms of when you the purpose is earlier, the purpose of communication was to, it should be complete the moment it is digested by the other party. But now the focus is to actually write in such a way that it is not a tough task for the reader to understand. So that is what the three key factors which will actually decide the success of successful writing, in terms of you should be able to engage. And that is why it is important to have good cover on the book, so that cover will define what is there in the store. Another important point is the relevance. So if you are able to engage, then that is only possible when you actually talk about the relevant, basically relevant aspects. And with whosoever is able to be successful in the two, then the effectiveness of that written piece is more, because it is having all the three aspects. But engaging and relevance is something which is which is the initiating step. Whosoever will have will be able to put relevant content and able to engage the audience. Relevant content will only be possible when you know the purpose or objective of why you are writing, and after that for whom you are writing, then only the effectiveness will be. So now if we actually talk about what all steps are there, or the part of the process, so that is what it is all about. So there are 5 steps. Guys, do you remember last time I actually showed you a couple of pictures? So remember this? A simple yes will do.
Yes.
Yeah. So there was a purpose actually. So that is what it is important in terms of that is the first stage where we are actually preparing. So these two pictures are the part of process which talks about preparation. So that is what now I'll be, this is the stages of basically a written piece, which could be applied to any of the writing exercise. Even if you are writing an email, that is also, all these 5 stages are going to be met, then it will be a kind of an effective writing. Even if you are as an analyst communicating to your clients. Sorry. So, I mean, if you're communicating to the client, then you should actually follow these 5 steps to make your writing more effective. But these are actually, so now let's move. When we are at the stage of the step 1 is going to be the preparation. Our first step finds its basis in our definition and focuses on identifying purpose and our audience, and has 4 major tasks. So actually, this is the first stage. When you are preparing the stuff, then your focus initially is to identify the purpose and the audience. Another one, establishing primary purpose, which is important. Assessing your audience, basically who are the readers, and determining the scope of coverage and selecting the appropriate medium. So this is actually the first instance when you know as an exercise that something needs to be done. Then the preparation stage will be focusing on these 4 key areas, which starts from what is the objective of writing, for whom you are writing, and basically determining the proper scope and selecting the appropriate medium of communication. So that is what it is important. And when you are establishing your purpose, then you are going to ask, what do you want your reason to know, to believe? What should they be able to do after reading this? Means the purpose. Is there a secondary purpose? So I mean, if you are contributing or working for a client and he has asked for something, and what is asked, you are looking into it, but there is a bigger picture which a client is seeing. He might have not explained to you, but if you can understand what is basically the overall picture, or how this piece is going to fit in the overall research or the objective, then that will help you to be more precise or more targeted to what is the objective is. So how it could be possible when you are be specific. So that is what, assess your audience. So there are a couple of questions which you actually would be asking if you want to understand who is going to read, or how these things are going to be actually utilized, or what is the level of knowledge. If you are presenting something to doctors, then you don't have to explain anatomy to them, or as a pharmacist or as a pharmaceutical company, you should be telling the cause and effect to them, because they know what all symptoms are there. If they know the symptoms, then there could be causes which are resulting into the symptoms, and then those symptoms could be treated with the solution. So whatever be the cause and effect status, you should know your reader. If it is doctors, then your approach would be different. If you are telling that to a patient, then your approach would be different. So that is what it is very important from an audience point of view. Now determining the scope, actually this is a very big problem whenever we are working on a written assignment. If we don't define the scope properly, then that will lead to many of the many times it leads to the delay in getting the completion. So defining or determining the scope is very, very important. That is where preparation stage is important. Then so when you are actually determining the scope, you actually assume lot of things about your reader. I mean, that is what you start assuming, or have your presumptions which are going into the scope. So that may or may not be right. So that is what, whenever you are actually into the preparation stage, you can ask or check with the client about the sanity of those assumptions, so that it is not result into the unnecessarily deviation or digressing from the topic. So another important part is that's where we get the term basically. Basically, I don't know what I'm talking about. So whenever I'm using basically again and again, then it means that I'm trying to say that this is what I'm proposing you, or I'm actually based on my understanding, or I'm trying to convince again and again the reader that whatever I'm saying is right. So for instance, if I'm doing a standard follow on equity research report, putting in a timeline of companies since it began would be a pointless endeavor. So I mean, that is what actually if you know the purpose and your audience and why it is done, then there could be many things which can be curtailed or cut in to be more precise and be objective. So however, if I'm doing an initiating coverage report, my scope is more comprehensive. So that is the I mean, basically objective is going to decide what it is, what needs to be included in, and at what level it has to be included in. So so that is what is basically defines the purpose, and which again based on the purpose it leads to the appropriate scope. Selecting the medium is not something which is a topic. Mostly we are talking about written communication. Now in the first stage, where we are actually preparing, when we were preparing about these things, we was too effective, then that will decide and take 10 pages to explain the scene, or you can go to the minute level where you would be talking about each and every thing in a greater detail. But there is no restriction. The audience who are reading that novel has enough time, and they like such writing style. That's why they are reading. But if it is an investor who is already very this is all time constrained, person and doesn't have much time, then there is no point actually explaining not to be relevant. So that's what when we do actually do a research, there are two types of research. One is the no much difference between primary and secondary. It's just that one is actually the second stage of the other. So from that I mean, when we are saying that primary research is you are of research which is directly collating the data. It could be in the form of questionnaire, it could be in the form of interviews, other surveys. So whatever you are doing is who is gathering such information, then it becomes a primary research. The moment you gather information and present that in any of the formats, it says primary is primary, as name suggests. When you are actually doing elections are over, these media houses go for the exit polls, and in that a couple of media houses who have done the primary, or they have presented the exit polls. So the moment the people like us who start reading this type of information, that's a secondary information for us. So for a company level information, or knowing how many people or brands sold, your brand for which you are doing research is something which is 40 or 50% of the sale, then that type of information is the primary information. And once what information is getting processed and published in the form of annual report or in the form of websites, all such information which is actually is the stage of the information or data collation or gathering, is something which is secondary. So there is it's one is the first stage and another one is the second stage. So there is not much difference. It's just that in one situation we are collecting information on our own, and in the other somebody else has done the research and we are using his knowledge for our gathering. So if you are gathering information from primary, then these are the basically the modes. Otherwise secondary research is basically done on the internet or the databases. Guys, is there any doubt or question you would like to ask so far, whatever we have discussed? Okay, so that is what it is all about, the research. Now research, in when you know that in the preparation stage you have defined the scope, then you know how much research we need to do. The question we ask is how much deeper we have to go. So that is what we decide in the second stage. Here, that is the example of wine. If you are writing a novel and want to describe color of a wine, wine a person is describing, you have a few options. The purpose is to entertain. So that is where the audience is important. The purpose is to entertain. So whenever you are into an entertainment business, you can do do that. Doesn't matter if the wine is carbonate or Roisa. I think these are the, as per my understanding, carbonate is a kind of a grape which used for wine, Raja is something, should be some quality of wine, so it could just be wine. So that is what it is important from a point of view for whom you are writing, or the what is the written content, or the mode. But if it was a novel involving wine, we might have to go little deeper, perhaps, to get color right, and that therefore the grape. So if it is on the wine, then description, as much as more you can describe, is going to benefit. The research you do is driven by the scope and purpose as well as the time. So the research is pretty much dependent on what you have actually outlined. I should not call it outline, but the initial scoping done in the preparatory stage is something which decides about the depth. Like there could be a different ways of doing it. If you are writing a research report, we would need to taste the wine to ensure what we are saying is factually correct. So sometimes you need to do the primary. Primary means you have to taste yourself before commenting anything on the taste of the wine. The purpose moves from entertaining from the novel to educating for the research report. So that is what, based on the audience, the writing style changes. So now that is what, whenever we are actually doing research, then we need to actually bifurcate or do a kind of a brainstorming, so that ideas can be generated. Because if we know the objective, we have defined this scope, we are going to do the research, but what we are going to research is something that is, we have to actually go deeper into the thought process, and that is what where content, what content is required, how much detailed content we need to do. That is what a brainstorming exercise is done, which becomes a part of research. So whenever you are doing a brainstorming is a kind of a meeting which could be, I mean, you might have heard about project scoping meetings, or the moment you get a project, based on what is asked, you do some discussions and try to draw a rough framework. So whenever you are doing a brainstorming, the most important thing is how you are taking notes. So you should do proper notes of that brainstorming session, so that we can list down all the points which are discussed, and then probably we can apply a testing mechanism whether that fits to the idea or objective or not, so that we can either drop. I mean, I think we did one exercise where we actually wanted to write something on the COVID, and after initially we had done a brainstorming exercise where we took everyone's ideas, and those ideas are written down or jotted by me. So I was the one who was actually doing the stock keeping here. So don't stop. I mean, that is what, in the brainstorming stage, don't stop to analyze. Do not stop to analyze ideas or hold back looking for only best ideas. It's like whatever comes to your mind, you just have to jot it down. After completing ideas, ask what, when, who, where, how, and why for each idea, and list the additional details that these questions bring into the mind. So that is what it is very important. Whenever you are doing the research, to do research in the right direction, there has to be proper ideas which should be jotted down, and then so that you can formalize your thought process and structure can be built. Finally, discard those which are redundant, and then based on the purpose and need of the audience, you can basically keep the points. Now, the moment you are done with the brainstorming exercise, so to give you a structure, there is a technique which we call it mind mapping. Have you heard about mind mapping? Can anyone throw some light on what is mind mapping? Yeah, complete radio silence is too dangerous. Either you are not understanding at all, or you know the topic very well. Okay, so I'm assuming that you are following me properly, and so now when we have to actually jot down or give a structure to our thought process, then we need to actually do a kind of we have to use a technique. Mind mapping technique helps in recording and organizing ideas created during the brainstorming. In the brainstorming, you have a lot of other stuff. So I'll just show you one video which will explain you how this brainstorming basically helps.
Sir, can you explain more about the brainstorming?
Brainstorming is like you were part of that exercise when I was taking part. I mean, noting the points which you all guys have given on COVID.
Yes, yes.
So that is actually that exercise is called the brainstorming exercise, where what we were doing, I was noting down all the ideas which everybody was giving to me, and then after that we that is what in this kind of a role, the first things which we do in brainstorming is we designate somebody who takes notes. So that is what I was the one who was actually taking notes, and then what we were doing, we were actually whosoever was giving points, I was just noting it down. I was not dropping any idea. I mean, I was not shooting the messenger in between. I was too generous to take or collate all the ideas, and then after that we actually scrutinized. I mean, after compiling ideas, ask what, when, who, where, how, and why for each idea, and list additional details that those questions bring in mind. So something which we, whenever, I mean, I'll just give you one basic example. Let's say you are going to celebrate your birthday, right? The moment you are you know that your birthday is coming up, you have to throw a party, and so there are a lot of ideas start coming to the to your mind. I mean, what all ideas would be coming? Can somebody contribute to me if you want to? 1 second. Okay. Let's say you who asked this basically. I'm just going. Who was this guy who asked? Shrikant.
Sir, I was. No, sir, I was.
Okay, Manmeet. Okay, Manmeet is going to celebrate his birthday. So what all ideas will come to your mind when you have to celebrate your birthday? So just give me point by point your ideas. It's open for all. Sorry.
What will be the place for celebrating? And
yes, venue, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. What else?
And the friends which I am inviting for the venue.
Invitees. Okay, then.
And to send the invitation to the invitees.
List
And,
of guests. And then mode of invitation. Hanji, or
Timing.
Hanji, or
Menu.
exactly. Hanji, or ड्रेस कोड. आजकल तो थीम बेस्ड पार्टी होने लगी है ना, हैं जी. So my point is, the moment, what was the topic? Right. So these are this is the topic. The moment birthday celebration came to the mind, all these things are started coming to whom I'll be calling, what I'm going to have in the menu, where I'll be, what will be my venue, at what time, whether I want to do it in the day or in the evening, what will be there on the menu. So all these are actually kind of brainstorming exercise, which will be which is part of these are the things which will. First point was birthday celebration, on which these all ideas came in your mind. That is what brainstorming is all about. Brainstorming is like you throw an idea to the group and they will start giving the different ideas. I mean, brainstorming is individual as well. You can alone also do that, and it can be done by the collective people as well. So the only point here is we are actually collating all the ideas which are discussed, generated, or thrown by the people on a topic. I mean, now when you are going to do the brainstorming, let's say it's a family who is going to do a birthday celebration for a kid. Then grandparents will have their own views, parents will have their own views, kids will have their own views. So then they will tell that this is going to be the venue. Everybody will suggest their own venue, and after that, because venue is something which is important. So when you are doing brainstorming for birthday celebration, these things will be the ideas. And once you are doing it for each point, like venue is going to be consulted with all the members, then that will be another exercise in terms of making the change. Now, how do you, brainstorming is a raw form of idea collation. Now, how we can actually use that, I mean, that into, or transform that into a structure. So that is what it becomes an important part. Like we use brainstorm mind mapping technique. I'll just show you a couple of videos which are more relevant to understand the mind mapping. Once you know how mind mapping is used, then it's easy.
Do you want to maximize your mind's creative potential and generate brilliant ideas?
The audio is clear.
Best-selling author and world-renowned expert on creativity.
This is the guy who actually created this mind mapping technique.
The mind map. So, what are mind maps?
These are techniques, I think, over 40 years and thousands of years of experience and research have been found to be the ways in which we think most effectively. And I I studied psycholinguistics, I studied pre-medicine, I studied groups of great thinkers, and I studied myself. It actually worked for me and what it did. And over the 40 years evolved the mind map.
Mind maps are easy to create and effective. We start with an eye-catching central image in the middle of a blank page. We then create branches that radiate out from this image and reflect your ideas.
You start a mind map with an image in the center. Why an image? Because worth 1,000 words, stimulates memory, stimulates associations, stimulates your thought. From the central image, the second law is main curvilinear branches. These emanate from the central image. Those main branches are curvilinear because thinking is natural, it's organic, and the curvilinear branch attracts the brain more. Those branches, which are called psychology, grammatic language, the BOIs, the basic ordering ideas, are fundamentally the chapter headings of your thought. From those branches emanate, not hanging off the ends, but emanating from main branches, BOIs, chapter headings, emanate these second level ideas. From those, the third level, from those, the fourth level, and very quickly you realize that the mind map as a manifestation of your thought is an infinite thinking process. You go on adding branches to this branch forever. You go on adding branches to this branch forever. So the mind map reflects the fact that potentially your thinking, your intelligences are infinitely capable of generation.
Add only one key word to each branch, avoiding phrases or sentences.
Wherever you can, this should be basically everywhere, one key idea per branch. Why one and not two? Why not a phrase? The reason is that each key idea, each key word, each key image is like a little exploding supernova. So every one radiates out associations. And when you're building a mind map, you want each one of those supernovas of meaning have the freedom to generate ideas. If you put them in phrases, it's like putting your hand in a cast. You rigidify all the joints, which is what makes your arm and hand essentially a phenomenal proper tool. Similarly with the mind map, single word per line rule actually gives you more explosive freedom, more explosive creativity.
To make your map more effective, you should use colour, stimulating images throughout.
Mind map triggers. It uses color instead of monochrome. Colors up blue. Do you like colors? Of course you do. And color is a thinking tool. It's not some childish thing. Color allows you to order, to discriminate, to code, to highlight, to generate thought, to remember. It's an ultimate thinking tool if used well, and especially in the context of the mind map. Images throughout. Same as for the central image, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So if you have images throughout your mind map, then you are going to automatically have more powerful memory, more stimulation, more interest, more generative thought.
Mind mapping has been proven to boost your productivity, creativity, memory, and comprehension. It can be used for almost anything, from planning and organizing tasks to generating ideas and presenting. Visit our website at thinkmuseum.com to find it.
Guys, one small video.
$7. You can make as many videos as you want, and you never need to pick up a camera or use any fancy editing software. With Doodly, you drag.
Hi everyone, it's Yanis here, and in this video we will explore what is mind mapping. To effectively generate ideas, you have to try out this simple but practical strategy. If this is your first time on the channel, then make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon to get updates on my latest videos about time management and productivity. Mind mapping is the process of representing your thoughts and ideas in a visual mind map concept. It is a visual thinking tool that helps you to structure information, helping you to better analyze it and come up with additional ideas. If you think about it, your brain works the same way. Once you come up with an idea for something, this usually tends to spark off various different ideas. Your brain is constantly mind mapping, but many times it is happening so fast that you don't even realize it. Let's say that you have a birthday coming up. So that will be the central element. Once you think about the birthday, you'll have multiple things to consider. Location, activities, gift, party. Then each of these elements have more things that need to be considered. Let's take a look at the party. Here we have to think about food, decorations, and invitations. Food can be then broken down into snacks, main course, drinks, and cake. You can keep going into exact drinks and foods that you want to serve. The great thing about mind mapping is that it gives you a visual representation of all the thoughts and ideas, so you can see the bigger picture. If you keep your thoughts in mind, then it's likely that you'll forget about them within a minute. You can create mind maps for anything in your life, be it your relationships, your business, or your next trip to Paris. I hope that you enjoyed this video and I was able to give you a quick summary of what mind mapping is and how you can use it.
So guys, this is what actually mind mapping is all about. The moment you do some brainstorming, you start arranging them in a way that you put your key point in the center and then try taking out some branches and go in that direction. So that is what it is all about, the mind mapping exercise. I have shared that video of Tenzin, who actually got patented this technique, so that you can also watch it later as well. So that is what my point here to talk about the mind mapping. This exercise helps you to structure your thought process, and when you have everything on the page, in terms of this drawing, where you have one central idea, and then from center you are taking out different nodes related to what you are going to do research on, and looking for further details into one of the aspects. It depends on what is your objective. If your objective is to look for the one aspect, then probably you will move in one direction, but the overall picture can be seen from this. So is there any doubt? If anyone has, we'll discuss that. Guys, you have any doubt on this? Okay, fair enough. Then let's take a break of 10 minutes. It's I guess how much time is this? It's 6:20. So let's meet after 10 minutes at 6:30, so that I can cover the rest of the parts. And if you have any doubts, I'll take them as well. Okay, let's meet after 10 minutes. Yes, guys. I think let's wait for 1 or 2 minutes so that others can come back. Okay, guys, let's not wait for them. I think they will join soon. Okay, now, so when okay, so when we actually now I'll just reiterate what we covered. We the process of understanding what all basically steps are required for the effective or good writing skills. So the first stage is the preparation stage, and the second stage is the research stage. In the preparation stage, what we do, we basically define the purpose, know the audience, and then do some scoping. And based on the scoping, we start doing the research. So research, when we do research, so in that we do some brainstorming, and whatever ideas we got it, we actually use mind mapping techniques to actually structure that thought process in a pictorial form, so that our ideas can be correlated to each other, and a logical flow can be formed. So now, so research can be done in two forms, primary and secondary, but we largely are focused on the secondary research. And the secondary research information, something which we get it from company website, registrar, annual report, associations, and other stuff. Whosoever has done the primary, or they were actually presented in the second stage of the information. Now I'll just take one example. If you are looking into a primary note taking, client meeting and note taking. So basically, for secondary research, you get all the information primarily to investment banking and equity research. Whosoever is part of investment banking and equity research, they generally do this type of secondary research. And but when you many a times it happens that you are actually doing some or the other type of research where information is not available in the secondary domain. So you have to go to the primary market or do the initial gathering. That is what where client meetings and note taking becomes an important. So when we actually do the note taking, taking requires prior understanding of the consent. I mean, the point here is whenever you are collating some information which is not available in the public domain, then what is important is how best you are placed in terms of your understanding about the topic. I mean, if you are doing some research on brand positioning, market share, then you should know who all are present in the competitive environment, other stuffs related to pricing, whether there is some segment differentiation is there or not, product differentiation, so that you can actually ask relevant questions. And even if sometimes we try to get information from the investor relations, they actually generally don't disclose any information more than what is available in the public domain, then you might try asking questions in different way so that the resultant information which you are looking for can be gathered. So that is what it is, type of research. So research, whether it is secondary or primary, the focus should be to focus is to actually do research as per the scoping done in the first instance. Okay, now this is what it is all about, note taking. I'm just going to read. This is a kind of an exercise. Long before the existence of bacteria was suspected, techniques were in use for combating their influence in, for instance, the decomposition of meat. Salt and heat were known to be effective, and these do in fact kill bacteria or prevent them from multiplying. Salt acts by the osmotic effect of extracting water from the bacterial cell fluid. Bacteria are less easily destroyed by osmotic action than are animal cells because their cell walls are constructed in a totally different way, which makes them less permeable. Okay, so this is something which you actually took, you have a piece of information or somebody has taken note. Now, note taking, what you have taken, there are three things which you got. Before discovery of bacteria, salt and heat were used to combat effect of bacteria. Salt kills bacteria by extracting water from their cell by osmosis, hence use in curing meat. Bacteria are affected by osmotic effect of salt than animal cell because cell walls less permeable. Okay, these are the three things. One, initially when you took note, you were actually gathered all the information. Now you are trying to understand what is there in that note. So this is what this is the note. Initially you are talking about that salt is effective in preserving meat from bacteria, and bacteria actually get killed because of osmotic process, because their walls are less permeable. So that is what it is all about. But what you have taken as a note now depend on for whom you are. If you are just giving an information that before discovery, I mean, you want to just state the fact, before discovery of bacteria, salt and heat were used to combat effects of bacteria. That is what we are telling. If you want to be explicitly assertive, then you are telling that qualities of salt. Salt kills bacteria by extracting water from. How salt is helping in that, and bacteria are affected by. This is basically a passive form of writing. Affected bacteria are less affected by osmotic effect of salt than animal cells, because cell walls less permeable. So there are different type of audience and different purpose. Three statements were extracted from the notes taken. So whatever style you are adopting, you can use the writing style. Now there is one aspect of questionnaires. Whenever we do research, we actually prepare a questionnaire which is asked to, and questionnaires are designed by psychologists as well, so that they are quite. Some questions are repeated in a rephrased manner, so that even if somebody is quite indifferent in answering two similar questions in a different way, then we can understand the state of the mind, how serious he was. I mean, you also see yourself when somebody asks to fill a survey, how serious we are. So that is what is all about in terms of the questionnaires. Research questionnaire is another technique of actually doing some kind of a primary research, and it serves the same function as an interview, because we are directly collating. There are some checklists which helps in this. Interviewing is another way of doing research, where you interview either industry experts or normal people to know. So interviewing, so when you are interviewing for the information, then there are key things which you should keep your questions so precise, sometimes objective, that answer should be yes or no, so that it is of the ease of the person who is being interviewed. So these are the actually technique. Now we move on to the third stage, and the third stage is organization. Actually, organization means whatever you have scoped in first stage, what you have actually collated or done research in the second stage. Now, how you have to actually organize that, and a logical method of development satisfies the reader's need for shape and structure, regardless of whether it is an email or report or a web page. It helps you as a writer move smoothly from introduction to conclusion. Now, how you have to organize that depends on three basic methods. If you are actually giving explanation on the subject, or it could be targeted through audience, or it could be based on the purpose. What is actually the purpose of the research? So guys, are you following me? Is there anything you would like to ask me? Now it's fine, right? I mean, at that point of time, I think somebody sent a message, voice is not working, because we were on a break. So that is what how different type of research techniques are used in the research stage of writing stuff. And then the third stage is the organization of the stuff which you have actually collated. So that which style you would be using, or the method which you would be choosing, is going to be dependent on either subject. If it is a subject matter, then there will be one style. If it is keeping in audience, it will be another style. And if it is I mean, you know what purpose you are writing, then you have another style. So now how do you present your research and analysis? There are three most effective ways of presenting. In one way, one method, we do cause and effect effect, where we do industrial analysis, trend analysis. It begins either with the cause and effect. I mean, there is a cause and then you just tell us the effect. So it's just an information about how it happened and what it has affected. I mean, a plain and simple exercise, if you are going to give whatever research you did on COVID-19, then you would be telling that how it what is the causes of COVID and how it affects. So that is what it is all about. It's just a presentation of presentation of facts in cause and effect style. Then there is another style of writing is the chronological method, where you would be actually sequencing in the sense that if you just want to, I mean, COVID is something which is coming again and again to my mind. So if you want to explain COVID in a chronological order, I mean, when it started in 2019, but it was restricted to China only. After that, it spread across the world, and there were three waves. I mean, three waves were witnessed. First wave was not that strong in terms of India. Second wave has given a totally dramatic, devastating effect. Then you would moving on to basically talking about the what is the current stage. So it's like a presentation of facts in a chronological order, and then you are adopting a style of something which you which would be comparative mode. I mean, where you compare it with the whatever products or whatever services are available, so that you are trying to prove who actually is at an advantage. I mean, sometimes you find it that there are a lot of investment options. People are suggesting on investment options in newspapers, where they are talking about, like if you talk about public provident fund or PPF, and you compare it with fixed deposits. So if you want to talk about write something on public provident fund, then there could be one way of writing by comparing this product with the others, where you are just giving the benefit of investing in the public provident fund, whether it is giving higher interest rate and it is not taxable in all the three stages. So that is what whenever you are comparing with writing in a comparison method, then it will be the different style. After that, there are many other different styles, but these are the three journal methods of which are adopted, and based on that we organize our research to present in a way. Otherwise, there are some other not so familiar or developed methods as well. Definition development method extends definition with additional details. It's like it's similar to what it is cause and effect, but you are actually talking about only one aspect. Division and classification method of development separate the whole into component parts and parts separately, and that clarifies the relationship between parts. I mean, you can talk of, I mean, the correct example would be these series, the web series which they actually have episode season 1, season 2. So where they are actually showcasing one aspect and classify that method, and then they have a follow-up this thing. Journal and specific methods of development proceeds from either journal information to specific. So where what we are doing, we are actually talking about an 1,000 feet view, and then coming out to an effect like GDP. If we are saying that Indian economy is going to grow and become a 5 trillion economy. That was Modi ji's dream some time back. So though nobody is talking about now. So if the economy is going to grow to 5 trillion, then obviously per capita income is going to grow, and if per capita income is going to grow, then everybody is going to earn more. And if everybody is going to earn more, means it's a generalized statement which we are trying to map to that some section of the industry which will also get benefit of the increased income. So that is again a kind of generalization and specific method where we are drawing inferences from one aspect to reaching out to the conclusion. Order of importance, it's again a chronological order, information in decreasing order to importance. First we'll talk about the most important things, then we'll follow. So these are actually the categorization of depending on the method used. Then there are sequential sequential or spatial methods as well, which are very specific to some reasons. But when we are going to use when we are organizing our research, then most likely we would be following these three approaches, which are in terms of cause and effect. Whenever we are writing something, then we are defining the problem and giving some solutions. Otherwise, chronological or comparative mode are the three adopted styles which helps us in writing effectively. Now, when we have organized our research, now it is that we have to outline the research. Scoping is a kind of outline, but whatever we have scoped, now it's like how we can fit in that into a logical order. An outline makes or breaks a presentation or report. It ensures there is an introduction and middle and end. So this is something which is basically how you are going to present. There are a couple of benefits. There are different types of methods available for outlining. Outlining is basically presenting them in such a way that the objective can be met. So it is the fourth stage before writing, because once we outline, and by using any of the techniques, different types of outlining, then we will actually start writing the content. Now, the first important step which is used for storyboarding. Storyboarding is quite familiar. It's like visualizing the whole story in a pictorial form. So, in raw sense, does anyone have any idea about storyboarding? Anyone can throw some light if you have some or the other idea about this. Manmeet or Deepak, Shrikant. Deepak, do you have any idea about storyboarding?
Sir, I think it's a visual presentation of a film and breaking into an individual panels and some sort of like this only.
That's the process of storyboard. Actually, the concept of storyboarding is used to visualize the actually overall organized structure. So, whatever research you have done, you have actually used one of the method of presenting, be it chronological, be it comparative, or whatever it is. Now, the point here is whatever you have in your plate, how you want to actually present that to the people. And the best way is if you can visualize what you are going to present. That is the best thing. I'll just show you one small video which will give you an idea how storyboarding basically works. It's a around 10 minutes video which briefly describes the storyboarding.
Hi guys, it's the way to visualize the, what can you hear? What's the ways of storyboarding? But I don't believe this at all. And two, there's a great artist to be a great storyboarder. I don't believe this at all. And two,
guys, just listen to this. This is very nicely presented storyboarding concept. So that you guys can understand it, and then we'll probably discuss how storyboarding is used in the research form.
one, you need to be a great artist to be a great storyboarder. I don't believe this at all. And two, there's a right and a wrong way to storyboard. You storyboard however you need to. In this video, I'm going to show you 2 different ways of storyboarding, but in both examples, they would absolutely get me. So for those of you who are here for the quick answer, I want to know what the golden rule is for a great storyboard. It's simple. A good storyboard is one that you can watch, one that you can absolutely experience, beyond just what the camera angle is and what happens. What can you hear? What's the lighting like? You need to have all of the details that you would need in a full film. It's like Martin Scorsese said in this quote. The storyboard for me is the way to visualize the entire movie in advance. Now have a think what he means by that. Before the expense of getting all of your crew and your equipment on set, which can be so expensive, it's a way of seeing every single shot with the music, with the lighting, and seeing what works and what doesn't work. Peter Jackson did this absolutely loads during The Lord of the Rings, and even went to the extent of hiring voice actors so that he could watch the entire film in storyboard before he even pressed the record button. So bear in mind, you're all going to have very different levels of artistic ability. What I'm going to do is I'm going to draw this twice. I'm going to draw it once for people who have slightly more of a visual way of working, and for people who genuinely believe they have no artistic ability, I'm going to do another version where we're going to be relying more on text. Now these are 2 storyboards that I've made. There are tons of templates online, but I like these ones because it allows you to adapt it most of all to your style. So here we're going to be putting most of the information in the frame. Here we're going to be making loads and loads of notes down the side. Now we need to have something to storyboard. So what I want to do is do this back to front. Let's watch this clip from Jurassic Park and just have a think beyond just the camera and what happens. What are the different elements that we're going to have to translate from moving image into a 2-dimensional print?
Is it?
So let's take a look at how we would do this visually. So in this one, I'm going to try and draw with as much artistic ability as I can, which isn't actually that much. I'm going to draw the whole scene, including the movement of the camera. Okay, so everything that we see when the frame starts and everything that we see when it finishes. So down here, there was little girl. There's the little girl. Got a couple of raptors here. Okay, so here I've tried to draw the entire scene. We need to include things like lighting. So when you consider how we're going to show the fact that there's like an awful lot of shadows on the wall and very, very low-key lighting, if you've got the artistic confidence, you can kind of literally just show where shadows will be. So they're casting quite heavy shadows themselves. The background is very, very shadowy. We've almost got irising kind of going around. I'm not even worrying too much about where the frames are, but I'm showing you that. Again, I want to make sure that's absolutely clear as to what the lighting is like. So don't be afraid to write on the frame itself. So we've got low-key lighting that focuses on the characters. If there's anything on here that it's not entirely sure what it is, like this kind of counter, it's not entirely obvious. I've done it very, very sketchy just to show that you really don't need that artistic ability. Don't be afraid to label things. We've got girl, boy, raptors, counter. In other words, make it absolutely clear to the person looking at your storyboard, assuming it's not you, what it is they're looking at. It might make perfect sense to them. It's got to make sense in the context of this video to the person marking the work.
I'm one of the 30 voices from
powered by the latest text-to-speech technology. Even creepy. Okay, so the next thing we said we were going to talk about was the way the camera works. Now, I've drawn this from the perspective that I want the camera to be in. But don't forget, there was that camera movement that did that kind of dolly-type crane thing that moves down as well. So what you can also do is literally draw on the frame, in this case, how the camera moves. So here, the first frame started around about here, and it ended with that kind of mid-close-up of the boy and the girl. What I'm going to do now is just show how that movement goes. So you can see, this one is all about the visuals. We've now got our starting frame, how it actually pans down to our finishing frame. Obviously, I've done this very sketchy, I've done it very scribbly. I'm not trying to be at all impressive, I don't think it is. But it shows you one way that you can do things visually, if you prefer to really picture things. So let's stop where we are now and start thinking about how we would do this even more simply if you do not enjoy drawing, or if you want to just stick to stickman. So I insist that you can do this. Let's do this exact same camera movement now over here. So I'm going to start off with the first shot, but this I'm going to have it separate. So we've got something that resembles a raptor. Honestly, I don't think anyone would call that a good drawing. It's not entirely clear as to what it is, so we should write down exactly what that means. We can say here, raptors appear at the kitchen door. I think in this case it's fairly obvious as to what we're looking at. We can clarify that underneath if we wanted, but here we're actually making things far more descriptive. Kitchen is very low-key lighting. Raptors scream as they enter. So much of what the pictures are doing for us here, if you can't draw any dinosaurs any better than this, then you've got to rely more on this actual dinosaur. Now, what I've done with this one is actually include the action, because again, you might have an idea for your storyboard as to what's happening, but it might not be entirely obvious to the person viewing it. So again, in both of them, I would actually say, give a very, very brief description as to what happens in the scene. So here, I'm also going to put down raptors enter. Boy and girl look scared. Okay, now going back to this shot, we have a continuation where it actually ends up on the second frame. Again, I just want to prove that you do not need to be the artist. We've got the girl, boy, looking scared. You label them. In fact, if you've got color, you can use these to make associations as well. So this character is always going to have an orange top or a yellow top, and this character is always going to have an orange top. And so that's a way of distinguishing between shots. Now here, I still need to show the camera movement, where I've shown it in one frame on this version. Here, these actually belong to the same shot, but they can very easily look like a separate edit. So here, I can put down shot 1A, and here is shot 1B, showing its continuation. Presuming I go to a different shot here, this would then become shot 2. So how do we tell the viewer how the camera moves from shot 1A to shot 1B? We can just write it down again. So we can say camera pans across to shot 1B. So what I've done here is the exact same thing, but again, I think where this is more visual, it involves perhaps slightly more artistic ability. I insist you can just draw some examples. How the camera moves, you're still achieving the same event.
What does AI mean for business leaders and for business actors?
Okay, so what other information are we going to need to include to ensure that we can absolutely see this just as clearly as if we were watching the clip? Sound is going to be factor. Now again, by the time you're storyboarding, you might have no idea what your finished soundtrack or sound effects are going to sound like, but you need to give the person an impression of what they can hear. So I'm just going to put in the background a little musical notes to show that it's music, and I'm going to describe it the best I can. Very low, chilling cello music. You could also include sound effects. So I want to have the sound effect of the boy and the girl panting, breathing, and then of course you've got the sound effect of the raptors in the background. Here, where I'm not actually like showing an awful lot visually, I need to be even more descriptive. So I'm going to write down what happens in this shot. Boy and girl look panicked. Camera finishes on mid-shot. Now that's an important point. You see me do it now with low key lighting and with mid-shot. From the perspective of trying to get the best grade, use that key terminology: mid-shot, long shot, close-up, high key lighting, low key lighting, diegetic sound, voiceover. The more of this kind of terminology you can show in your work, the higher your chances are of making the story. So we've covered the fact that you need to include mise en scene, whether it's drawn or described. We've looked at how you need to show what the camera does in terms of its composition and its movements, be it in one frame or two separate frames. We also need to show how you would deal with editing, whether one clip does a straight cut, like it does in 99% of cases, or whether you want to have a dip to white, or a dip to black, or a crossfade. How do you do this? Again, it's up to you, but the way I've always done it traditionally is to use the symbols that you get in old school Final Cut Pro. So for a straight cut, I'll always put this inside, almost showing the clip ending and the clip starting. If I was to show a crossfade between two clips, I'd be tempted to draw a cross showing the transition between the two. So I know between shot 1B and shot 2, I have a crossfade. Well, of course, there's another option. You can just write it. So on the side of shot 2, we can just write crossfade to shot 2. Just like I said at the start of this video, the important thing is to show the information. It doesn't really matter how you do it as long as it's clear to you and the person who's marking it. So what about other specific things that we might need to do, such as depth of field, focus? Well, let's just have a think about how we can show that. Let's look at this shot. Let's assume that we wanted to have a focus pull from the background to the foreground. How can we show that? Well, first off, we could describe it. So we could actually say focus pull from background to foreground. That would work absolutely fine. If you wanted to, you could show them as two separate shots. So in the first one, you could just draw a grey crosshatch over these guys. And in the second shot, change it so that the crosshatch was in the background. And actually labeled that with where the focus is. Focus in the background or focus in the foreground. Either way, you're making that absolutely clear. I've shown with shadows how we could show an absence of light. But what if you had specific lighting from a natural source or something like this? Well, you might want to show that actually on the frame. So here, I want the guys to be lit from above. I can just draw what looks something like a lamp and show where the lighting is coming from. I can then write next to it, spotlight from above. You can describe it. Or like I did in the one before, just show light with shade. Now, I'm hoping you're looking at these two thinking they are anything impressive. I've tried my hardest to show a lack of artistic ability. But the one thing that I would say that we have in each of these examples is a very, very clear picture of your intentions as a director. The whole point of the storyboard is to consider what you will or won't need on the actual day of shooting before you start spending money. So let's just have a quick recap of what you need for an awesome storyboard. One, show what you can in terms of the mise en scene. If you're able to draw it, then do. That's fantastic. If you can't, just draw the most essential placement of things with a description on the side. The camera work, so this includes special instructions such as the focus, the composition, the way the camera moves. Show that.
Yes, guys. The point here is when we are talking about storyboarding is like visualizing what you have already with you. But when we are going to write a report, then in that report we will be using similar boxes or similar frame where we will draw a kind of a picture how we want to present our data. I mean, for that matter, if we are writing an initiation report, and then what we can do, we can actually bring in or make a chart where we will show how we want to present in a sequential order. If we are, let's assume we are going to write an initiating coverage report on Reliance Jio, and then what we are going to do, we will know that it's going to be we are going to talk about industry, we are going to talk about company, we are going to talk about valuation, we are going to talk about risks. So all these 4 things will be, but how we are going to talk about, it's like we will be starting with the in the first frame we will be like talking about the industry, and then once we have the industry, then we will just move on to from industry to the second section, where we will talk about we'll draw some inferences from the industry, how company is placed and how that industrial structure is helping them to drive growth. And then probably we'll have the company related specifics, where we are going to talk about balance sheet strength, where they are, what they have achieved, how quickly they have achieved, what is the past performance, all that stuff. So my what is the point here of emphasis is, you should actually have a bigger picture drawn in your mind, because it's not going to be like you have some research and you start writing. Unless and until things fall in line and the proper sequencing is followed, it is not possible for you to produce a very good report which will actually keep the flow the way it has to be. Because the problem will be you have the content, you have already collated a lot of information, but what you want to showcase or how you want to present, then that is what it is. It could be used with the technique of storyboarding. Basically, storyboarding is something which you have already with you, and how you want to present that. So that is what it is. I'm not asking you to be a director where you will be making pictures, but the storyboarding technique helps us in basically chalking out the design of the report, what sections I'm going to include, how what will come first, and what will be followed by the this thing. So a number of orders, or you can decide orders and other stuff while with the help of your storyboarding. So that's way it becomes very, very important in terms of when we are talking about outlining or presentation style of storyboarding. Basically what you are just presenting them. Then there are other develop and integrate visuals. It's like you can have use basically the combination of text and charts for presenting. Otherwise you have smart arts, which basically develop and integrate visuals is you use a lot of graphs, photographs, maps, and other stuff to showcase different aspects. That is what another way of presenting. Third way is you actually use graphics, which is the PowerPoint point, and then you have the basically the layout and design. In that you would have different ideas, but the logic behind every layout or design is that it has to be readable. So that is what is more important. Layout and design should be justification, heading, proper header and footer, list down columns, and the white spacing properly. So this is what page should be. Aligned left, justified. So best would be to justified content. Then heading should be proper. All headings should be either of the similar font size, where consistency should be followed. You can use the layout of single page or double column in the pages. That is what it is, the preference. Basically all the designs which you would be using, once you follow, then you will start writing. And in writing there are few principles which you should follow. Always start, write actively, so that it is concise and you can avoid ambiguity around writing. So when you say that use active voice is your basically your subject is doing some action. So like David wrote newsletter article. It's like an active. Otherwise, if you have to present it in a passive voice, then the newsletter article was written by by David. The point here is whenever you see by, which is a journal rule, but your subject is at the at the end, then it is a passive voice. But largely, you should be straightforward and use active voices while writing. So, I mean, few examples of writing is like product B and C should be checked for consistency in quality. That is one way of writing. But check quality consistency of product B. I mean, the live example of this thing is I'm loving it. So it's being loved by me. Object is actually at the end, but be concise where you have I am loving it kind of a active voice. Now there are dangling modifiers. Dangling modifiers are modifiers where it's like are there, but which are more confusing, means incomplete phrases. I'll just give you one example. While focusing on revenue, profitability suffered. Who was actually? The management was focusing on revenue, profitability suffered. So that is what actually you should not use incomplete phrases. So always add the appropriate subject to either the dangling modifier or the main clause, so that message should be clear. These are the some of the examples of active and passive. Like it was reported by the management that a new product is a failure. I mean, it's when you want to say something, then it has to be active. Like management reported the new product is a failure. So your way of writing should be active. When you can use passive, you can use passive only when you are communicating something negative. Like the company staff did not meet the sales quota last month. So how you can present the sales quota wasn't met last month. So that is what you are actually trying to mitigate the negative effect of negative statement. I mean, sales was not able to meet. I mean, targets were not met. So that way is some instances where you can use passive, but mostly use the active voice. Achieve consciousness. So, which is arbitrary, like, I mean, you don't use, eliminate the need for an additional helping verb or extra this thing. Like arbitrary changes in wage policy are resented by trade unions, and they often respond by striking. Trade unions resented arbitrary changes in wage policy and often strike in response. So use active so that they can. There are a couple of obvious errors which can be avoided, or there are actually practices which should not lead to the error, like a logical error. I mean, logical error are examples like if you say that Delhi is a small village. I mean, so, but it can be presented in a different way where, I mean, it's not going to lead to any conclusion when you say that Delhi is a small village. Guys, am I too fast? Are you following me, right?
सर जैसे आपने वो बताया स्टोरी बोर्डिंग, तो उसमें आपने बताया कि हम लोग विजुअलाइज करते हैं, तो विजुअलाइज इन द सेंस मतलब कि अब क्या होने वाला है, कि मतलब ये कि हम लोग डाटा कलेक्ट करके क्या प्रेजेंट करेंगे, ये मतलब थोड़ा मैं
कैसे हम उसको प्रेजेंट करेंगे, एक्चुअल में कैसे हम उसे प्रेजेंट करेंगे. अब जैसे हमने क्या किया, जब हमने रिसर्च की, अब वो रिसर्च करने के बाद मान लीजिए मुझे एक कंपनी की रिपोर्ट पब्लिश करनी है. अब वो कंपनी की रिपोर्ट जब मैं रिसर्च कर रहा था तो मुझे नहीं मालूम था ना कि मुझे उसको कैसे प्रेजेंट करना है, मैं तो रिसर्च कर रहा था, राइट. अब इफ आई गिव यू अ टॉपिक, तो जो भी आपको रिसर्च में मिलता रहा, आपने सब कुछ उसको कोलेट कर लिया. अब वो कोलेशन के बाद उसको प्रेजेंट कैसे करना है, तो वो आपको अब यहाँ पे स्टाइल इंपॉर्टेंट हो जाता है. जैसे कि अगर आप कॉज एंड इफेक्ट की बात करते हो, तो आप क्या करोगे, पहले उस आपका इनपुट, मिडल एंड एंड, तो वो उस पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से आपको कैसे आप अपनी स्टोरी को प्रेजेंट करने वाले। तो स्टोरी बोर्डिंग जो आपने बेसिकली कंटेंट इकट्ठा किया है उसको प्रेजेंट कैसे करोगे। अगर आपको लगता है कि इंडस्ट्री जो है वो इंडस्ट्री है, मान लो इंडस्ट्री में बहुत स्कैटर्डनेस है, कोई भी कंसंट्रेशन नहीं है, आपको इंडस्ट्री के कंपेटिटिव स्ट्रक्चर का कोई एडवांटेज नहीं मिल रहा। अब ऐसा बात करते हैं, अगर कोई प्रोडक्ट जिसकी डिफरेंशिएशन इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है, मतलब आप जाओ और आपको कोई प्रोडक्ट डिफरेंशिएशन की वजह से आपकी कोई चॉइस नहीं है। अब अगर वैसी इंडस्ट्री है तो आपके प्रोडक्ट की स्टैंडिंग के लिए इंडस्ट्री आपको कोई सपोर्ट नहीं कर रही है। अगर चाय पत्ती की बात करें तो चाय पत्ती, सारी चाय पत्ती एक जैसी है, अगर कोई आप ब्रांड के पीछे ना जाए तो ही कैन गो डायरेक्टली एंड आस्क फॉर वन ऑफ द टी लीव्स।
ब्रांड की वजह से डिफर होती है।
हाँ जी, brand is for the differentiation, right? So that is what I'm saying. Now you have done some research on any of the tea company and market structure जो है वो आपको डिफाइन करके ऐसा बता रहा है कि आप उस मार्केट स्ट्रक्चर से कंपनी को कोई एडवांटेज नहीं है। अगर कंपनी को एडवांटेज नहीं है तो आप इंडस्ट्री की बात नहीं करना चाहोगे अपनी रिपोर्ट में, आप बात करना चाहोगे कि क्योंकि प्रोडक्ट डिफरेंशिएशन नहीं है जिससे कोई भी कुछ भी बेच सकता है, तो प्राइसिंग इंपॉर्टेंट होगी। तो क्या फैक्टर, क्या चीज कैसे प्रेजेंट करनी है, वो आप एक बार के लिए स्टोरी फॉर्म में रखते हो। अब मान लो आप कभी कोई रिपोर्ट भी लिखोगे या कोई पेपर पब्लिश करोगे, तो उस पेपर पब्लिश करने का स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट होगा, उसके बाद मिडल में बॉडी होगी, फिर कंक्लूजन होगा। तो वो आपको कैसे सीक्वेंस करना है वो आपको स्टोरी बोर्डिंग बात करता है। आपने देखा ना, स्टोरी पहले आप डायनासोर्स को दिखा रहे हो, उसके बाद बच्चे डरे हुए हैं, कैमरा जो है वहां से यहां तक मूव कर रहा है। वो सिर्फ इसलिए है कि आपको कैसे अपने डेटा को प्रेजेंट करना है। अगर आपको एक तरीका तो ये हो गया कि आपने इंडस्ट्री, कंपनी, वैल्यूएशन, इन 3 पिरामिड्स को यूज किया और आपकी रिपोर्ट बन गई। पर अगर कोई और आप स्ट्रक्चर फॉलो करते हो तो कैसे किस चीज को पहले लाओगे। मान लो वैल्यूएशन बहुत अट्रैक्टिव है, अब अगर वैल्यूएशन बहुत अट्रैक्टिव है तो सबसे पहले आप वैल्यूएशन की बात करने लगोगे। तो वो जो चीज है ना, वो है बेसिकली स्टोरी बोर्डिंग। किस तरह से आप अपना डेटा प्रेजेंट करो,
मतलब सीक्वेंस कैसे रखनी है, कैसे करना।
बिल्कुल, सीक्वेंस कैसे करोगे, क्योंकि आउटलाइन का मतलब ही यही है कि आपका प्रेजेंटेशन कैसे होगा। अब उस प्रेजेंटेशन में आपको आपने मान लो सारी इंफॉर्मेशन 10 उसमें आप थे ना, उसमें एक्सरसाइज में जब हमने कोविड के ऊपर डेटा पॉइंट्स इकट्ठे किए थे, तो जब हमने कोविड के ऊपर डेटा पॉइंट्स कोलेट किए थे तो तब हमारा फोकस ये नहीं था, हम रिसर्च कर रहे थे कि ये चीजें हम निकालेंगे। फिर हमने क्या किया कि हमने उनको अगर स्टोरी बनाई तो वो जो स्टोरी बनाई उस स्टोरी को कैसे प्रेजेंट करना है, तो उसमें हम रीअरेंज कर रहे थे, वो इंपॉर्टेंट हो जाता है। तभी स्टोरी बोर्डिंग जो है वो बिजनेस राइटिंग की विजुअलाइजेशन है कि आप क्या चीज बताना चाहते हैं। क्लियर?
यस यस, क्लियर सर।
ठीक है, ठीक है। तो और दूसरी चीज ये है कि हमारी जब ये हम बेसिकली अगर देयर आर फ्यू, जब हम राइटिंग करते हैं तो देयर आर फ्यू थिंग्स विच वी कैन अवॉइड सो दैट हमारी राइटिंग जो है वो क्रिस्प रहे। अब इसमें ये पॉइंट्स हैं। अब स्वीपिंग जनरलाइजेशन का मतलब ये हो गया कि मैं ये कहना चाहता हूं, अगर हम ये कहें कि सब लोग, एवरीबडी विल नीड स्मार्टफोन, तो स्मार्टफोन विल ग्रो, तो ये क्या, ये इट्स अ जर्नलाइज स्टेटमेंट, इट विल नॉट लीड टू अ कंक्लूजन कि आपकी कंपनी को वो फायदा मिलेगा कि नहीं मिलेगा। नॉन स्क्विटर्स होते हैं, नॉन स्क्विटर्स जो हैं वो एक्चुअली अननेसेसरली इंफॉर्मेशन होती है जो कि आपको, मतलब ये हो गया कि आपने कोई भी कुछ भी ऐसे ही डाल दिया। अब डाल दिया का मतलब ये है कि जिनका कोई लॉजिक नहीं है वहां पे। जैसे एक स्टेटमेंट है ये, आई क्लियर्ड ऑफ माई डेस्क एंड द रिपोर्ट इज ड्यू टुडे। अब क्लियर ऑफ डेस्क और रिपोर्ट ड्यू का आपस में कोई वो नहीं है, तो अब इससे क्या फर्क पड़ता है? अगर मैंने क्लियर ऑफ डेस्क कर दिया तो उससे कोई फर्क पड़ने वाला है कि मेरी रिपोर्ट में कल ड्यू है? तो ये जो चीजें हैं ना, ये चीजें हमें थोड़ी अवॉइड होनी चाहिए। स्टेटमेंट दैट डजंट लॉजिकली फॉलो अ प्रीवियस स्टेटमेंट। तो अब अगर हम स्टोरी बोर्डिंग यूज करेंगे तो हमारे को एक्चुअली लॉजिकल फ्लो पता चल जाएगा। तो हम जो भी कॉज एंड इफेक्ट लें, क्रोनोलॉजिकल ऑर्डर लें या कंपैरेटिव मोड लें, हमें ये अजीब अजीब सी जो स्टेटमेंट्स होती हैं इनसे बचना है। अब आगे जैसे फॉल्स क्लॉज, अब फॉल्स क्लॉज का मतलब हो गया आई डिडंट ब्रिंग माय अम्ब्रेला टुडे, नो वंडर इट इज नाउ रेनिंग। तो इन दो स्टेटमेंट्स का कोई आपस में कनेक्शन नहीं है। अगर आप छाता नहीं लेके आए तो बारिश होगी, ये एक सुपरस्टिशन है, या एक तरीके से एक बेसिकली एनालॉगी डिफाइन करने की कोशिश की है कि जब मैं छाता नहीं लाऊंगा तभी बारिश होगी, तो वो एक्चुअली एक सरकाज़्म है। तो ये सब चीजें हमें अवॉइड करनी है। अब जैसे हम बहुत सारे फैक्ट्स जो है कंक्लूजन रीच ऑन अ रिजल्ट ऑफ बायस्ड डॉक्यूमेंटेशन, सोर्स इंफॉर्मेशन बोथ प्राइमरी एंड सेकेंडरी। अब मान लो अगर आप कहते हो कि मैं एप्पल कंपनी पे रिसर्च कर रहा हूँ, तो आप ऑलरेडी बायस्ड हो कि एप्पल तो अच्छा कर ही रहा होगा। तो ये सब चीजें हमें ना अवॉइड करनी है। फैक्ट और ओपिनियन में क्या डिफरेंस है? तो ये जो चीजें हैं, इफ यू गो थ्रू ऑल दीज बेसिकली जो पॉइंट्स हमने यहाँ प्रेजेंटेशन में प्रेजेंट किया हुआ है, तो दे आर टॉकिंग अबाउट टू बी मोर प्रिसाइज, कंसाइज, कंसिस्टेंट। ये सब वो चीजें हैं जो व्हेन यू राइट एंड रीड यू विल फॉलो। अब वेग स्टेटमेंट नहीं होनी चाहिए। अब वेग स्टेटमेंट तो कोई भी नहीं देना चाहेगा, तो हाउ वी कैन अवॉइड वेग स्टेटमेंट? इट वाज अ प्रोडक्टिव मीटिंग that is going to lead to better management. It's a vague statement. It's a generalized statement. Nobody can draw any conclusion from this. तो वो उस रिपोर्ट में उस लाइन का कोई मतलब नहीं बच जाता। तो ऐसी सिचुएशन में हमें कैसे प्रिसाइज लिखना है? द मीटिंग रिजल्टेड इन अप्रूवल ऑफ हेल्थ केयर बेनिफिट पैकेज। लाइक क्या आउटकम क्या था, जिससे कि मुझे पता चले कि बेसिकली वेग स्टेटमेंट नहीं दूंगा। अब ये अफेक्टेशंस होती हैं। अफेक्टेशंस क्या है? अफेक्टेशन जो होता है, हम ना एक्चुअल में बहुत ही ऐसी पिक्चर प्रेजेंट करने की कोशिश करते हैं जो रियली ट्रू नहीं होती। अफेक्टेशन इज द यूज ऑफ लैंग्वेज दैट इज मोर फॉर्मल, टेक्निकल और शोई देन नेसेसरली। अब जैसे वी आर लीडर्स इन द मार्केट, अब that doesn't depict an attempt to assure or exhibit what is not natural or real. तो बेसिकली मुझे जो पिक्चर है वो मार्केटिंग स्टेटमेंट्स यूज नहीं करनी है, जिससे कि मेरी स्टेटमेंट सिंपल लैंग्वेज पे हो। People feel affectation lends a degree of authority to their writing. कुछ लोग होते हैं जो फ्लारी लैंग्वेज यूज करना चाहते हैं, बट वो फ्लारी लैंग्वेज is not required. And then we have actually don't use jargons which are not easily understood. So better है कि simplicity use करें लाइट वो उसमें। अब ये glitches होते हैं। अब a phrase or opinion that is overused and betrays a lack of original thought. अब जैसे glitches के केस में, अब यहाँ पे all over the map can be used as scattered, confused. The game plan is a phrase, strategy. I mean, this is what the game plan is all about. I mean, this is what the strategy should be. So you should avoid using these glitches which are basically not appreciated by everybody. When we are into a professional write-up, we should focus on all these things. Last but not the least, this is last or finally. So that is what we should avoid while writing. Vertical stacking phrases means up you can decide the order, and then grammatically you should write appropriately. ऐसा ना हो कि एक बार आप पास्ट की बात कर रहे हो फिर फ्यूचर में चले जा रहे हो, तो जब आपको कुछ एक्सप्लेन करना है तो पैराग्राफ में पूरा का पूरा एक ही टाइम पीरियड से रिलेटेड हो। ग्रामेटिकल जो पोर्शंस हैं वो हाउ सेंटेंस आर स्ट्रक्चर्ड, पैराग्राफ्स, लॉजिकल फ्लो होना चाहिए, ये सब चीजें आर एक्चुअली एक्सप्लेन्ड है. You just go through this slide, and if you find there is something which needs to be verified, we'll discuss this in tomorrow. Uh, Otherwise, these are actually, I mean, I'm assuming that grammar is something which everybody knows because it's a basic English requirement to write. So how to formation of structure, and structure is what it is important. Punctuation is very what you are writing and how you are writing. If you can answer these things just on the So